Really nice to be here. I will make sure that I'm on time so everyone gets out on time. Thought I would start with this quote that's very familiar. I'm sure all of you know. It's not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. And when we think about the ones that have been most responsive to change, I think about Uber, who is the world's largest taxi company and has no vehicles. How about Alibaba, the world's most valuable retailer and has no inventory? Or how about Facebook, popular media, no content created? And of course, Airbnb, now the largest accommodation provider, has not one building. Really interesting, and would we have thought about this 10 years ago? So what I wanted to talk about, and kind of the focus for my talk today, is that we must innovate. It doesn't matter what you do, what company you work in, it is imperative, or we will die. So we need to think about how we can innovate in our organizations, and it's really important because innovation is changing, and Alex talked about this, customer expectations. So customers want transparency. They want to, as Ted said, they want to be able to talk to their other residents who are in their building and start to problem solve on their own and figure things out. They want things to be on demand. So I would ask yourself, can you provide your services on demand? Or is there only a window of time that someone can talk to you or find you or get service from you? Online booking. Can everything be done in your business on a smartphone? So can people book an appointment? Can they arrange things to happen, whether it's 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning? Can that happen? And the other thing is around design, which I love some of the work that TRI and others are doing, around people expect accessible, good design. They just expect it. They don't expect to pay huge amounts of money for something that looks nice and is functional. So no matter what we're doing and what business we're in, this is another one of the customer expectations that is changing the way that we operate. And of course, people need choice and control. And Virgin has been really interesting, and as you know, who's been on a plane lately, you get the rack going all the way down, and then it comes all the way back, and then if it's a long flight, you get it down again for the food and drinks, yes? Well, if you go to Virgin, you have your computer screen, you just order your food and your drink whenever you want it, it's queued, and the people come, the stewardess comes when it's your turn to get it. So they just work with your schedule. So interestingly, it doesn't cost any more money, but it allows for far more choice and allows people to get things when they want it versus the one time down and back of the aisle of the plane. So these are some, I think, really important changes that are happening around us that will impact every sector, every organization. So just for a little bit of context about Revera, very quickly, we have been around for over 50 years, and we have seniors apartments, we have independent living, we have assisted living, memory care, long-term care, retirement homes. We have quite a large network. We have some companies that are in our name, others in other names, and so in total we have about 47,000 employees. We have 51,000 seniors who are housed with us and over 500 sites in Canada, US, and UK. And one of Revera's strategies was around this idea of innovation. And many things happened because we felt that if we didn't do it, we would be left behind. And we did not want to be left behind. So last year, after this strategy, a number of things were pulled together, and I wanted to share some of that with you in terms of our journey. So we appointed someone who was actually in charge of innovation, and it was not happening on the side of their desk. That's me. And I actually picked up this Harvard Business Review article. This is no joke. It said how to create an innovation hub in 90 days, and I just followed it exactly and worked really hard to make things happen. And the first part of it was to get a really good scan of your internal and external stakeholders. Find out as much as you can about what the current state is, about what people want, what they need, what they feel the gaps are, etc. So we did that. We also did some great surveys of our residents, families, and clients, asking them, where do you want innovation? What is important to you? And I think one of the learnings there was that our staff had a very different idea about what we should innovate from what the residents wanted innovation in and what the families wanted. So families, for example, their number one was communication. Families care about communicating with staff, with residents, and being connected with their loved one. Whereas the residents themselves cared about things that were more personal to them. Managing their incontinence issues was one that was high up for them, not high up for the staff, for example. So very interesting to get input points from different perspectives. And also looking at how we can engage experts, and I love stealing ideas, so I just will go out there and find out who's already got this figured out. I've already stolen a couple things from Ted, so that's great, and we can share that. So around our innovation, there was sort of 4 things that we were focused on. One was around thinking about how we interact with partners to pilot innovation and see how that works. And also how we get our staff engaged, and we also were able to put some money aside with our board. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the idea here is that we really need to find ways, and in your organization, you need to think about, well, how do there's lots of ideas out there. There's lots of things that people say, well, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. Well, yeah, that's all fine and great, but you need to be able to filter that. Filter it against criteria, filter it against priorities, filter it against what is most important, ROI, etc. And you need to do that within your organization. And then depending on what it is, you might need a way to pilot it or test it or model it and see if it works and get feedback and be able to further adapt what is happening. So these are some of the things that we have put into place and frameworks that we've built to just get some innovation working. We've also partnered with a number of great organizations, AgeWell and Mars, Aging 2.0. These are all related to seniors, and we've been able to use them both as a funnel, but also as a way to interact with others who are interested in what we are doing, and they have a passion for seniors as we do. So another point that I wanted to make around innovation, I'm the gorilla in the back there that's me, is that it really is everyone's job. And I think, it's something that at Revere I'm really working hard for people not to sort of point at me, like I am not the innovation person. We all need to think about innovation. I need the housekeeper at a site to be thinking about what would be a better way to do this. We need our residents to come up with and articulate the needs that they need filled so that we can help solve their problem. So I am not going to think of all the new things that we need in our buildings to prepare them for the future, but the knowledge is there, and how do we solicit that knowledge? How do we make it easier for people to work with us and to respond and to give feedback? And I think also to Alex's point about collaboration, this is so important. We have competitors, we all have competitors, but we need to collaborate in order to be stronger, to have a stronger sector, to have a stronger voice. And so, of course, there are times that we need to compete passionately, but there are also many, many opportunities where we can work more closely together for common goals, whether that's regulatory changes or advocacy and that sort of thing. So I am just going to leave you with a couple of thoughts, and I might just see where people are, if people don't mind raising their hands on this. But where are you around getting input from clients and customers? I read through about 1,000 pages worth of survey results that we had done for our residents and their families. And what I found interesting is that there's the question, please rate this or that. Those had some interesting, but the comments were the most interesting, where people had free rein to just type out, here's what they thought. There was unbelievable value and richness in that commentary, but it's almost the thing that isn't looked at that much. We tend to look at, well, here's the 10 main questions that I have to show to my board in the next quarter, so that's what I'm going to focus on, and we kind of lose some of the richness in that. And so that's been a great source of input and provoking some thought. And I'm just curious how many people have a way to solicit input from their clients and customers and find out, like, is the building, does it work the way you thought it would work? Do people have formal ways to do that? Do you mind raising your hand or not? How many people have that? Yeah, so just think about how you can do this, because the customer voice is going to be king, queen It is what is going to be most important in the future. We all have to revolve ourselves around that, as opposed to sitting in our office thinking about what they might want. We actually have to go out and ask them and get that input directly. So I think that's really important. Another place where I think there is a huge lever for innovation is around our vendors and our suppliers. So it's an area that we're exploring now. So we know that we might have equipment that is not working that great, but the question is, well, do we ever bring the vendor in and say, this is crap and we need to fix it and here's some feedback? Do we do that? And so we know we're not doing it that well now at Riviera. I'm going to start working on a bit of a process, but we have vendors and suppliers who we need to work hand in hand with to ensure that the experience and the work that we're doing is as strong as it possibly can be. And I think sometimes we don't ask our vendors, our suppliers, what are you innovating in? What are you working on? What's happening? And try and align some of those, especially with some of the strong ones. So again, I'm just curious, do people do this now? Is anyone working on collaborating in a more united way with their vendors or suppliers? Yeah, so something to think about, And another one is staff, and how do we get feedback and input from our frontline staff? There's a number of software tools out there like BrainBag, Softbox, a number of other collaborative tools that Google at Work have, and these are all ways in which you can just make it easier for frontline staff to provide ideas and then find a way to reward that and say, yeah, that's a great idea. And all of this will improve the experience that is happening in the home, which is, our objective and what we're trying to achieve. And then finally, I think, how do we stay abreast of innovations in our sector? I mean, it's great that all of you are here. Hopefully, some of the thoughts that you've received from the speakers is provoking even one nugget of something that you can take back. And so thinking about, where do I get that feedback? How do I find out what is leading edge right now in my sector? How can I steal things from other sectors? Because other sectors have a lot of new and interesting things that are happening. So that's something else that I think I will leave you with. And probably my final point is, again, back to innovation and in terms of the future of the home. Many of you have an interest or a stake in this, but we need to be able to listen to feedback. And Ted and I had this little chat before this started, where sometimes we only work in the paradox of what we know, and it's hard to think about a different way of doing things. And so thinking about, do I listen? Am I open? Am I actually open to changing the construct of what I know into a construct that's very different? And if we think back to my very first slide about those companies, Uber and Airbnb, and some of the ones that have really taken their construct and blown it right out of the water, we need to do that too in all of our companies and in our sectors in order to meet the future needs of our consumers and clients. And the other thing I would say is that take risks. It's not perfect. You make mistakes along the way, and that's a great way to learn. And but on the other hand, don't wait for perfection. I read this quote once that perfection is constant evolution. That's really a definition for perfection. I think that's true, that we need to continually evolve. So thank you very much, everyone.
No, Trish, don't run away. That was a really inspiring discussion. Any challenging questions first? You're in a hospital. Hospital's an old-fashioned word. We don't talk about it as a hospital any longer. We think about health systems. We will increasingly at UHN be reaching out. Well, we're doing two things, actually. The first thing is we're going to become a high reliability organization. Believe it or not, our focus is going to be on not killing people. About 100,000 people die a year in North America from accidents, from mistakes made in hospitals. So we're going to make sure that we clean our act up and that we are the leaders in being a high reliability organization. But the second thrust that will follow that is making sure that we're a full partner in the community. That we're talking about not a hospital, but a health system. And a health system involves preventing people from ever coming into a hospital, because what could be safer than not going into a hospital. It's not a good idea to go to a hospital, by the way. And then, once they've been in a hospital, if they have to come here, making sure they get home as fast and as well and as able as possible, and then helping people live in their own homes, however their homes are organized into the future, and integrating the healthcare into the home so that we don't make these visits to hospitals and wait in waiting rooms for hours and hours and hours and give you a history again for the 19th time and then go through some horrible process and then maybe eventually escape back home. The whole thing is talking about a systems approach. I hope that you've been inspired this morning. It's probably not what you expected. Toronto Rehab is at the center of this new movement. I'll come back to the point that in coordinating a lot of the innovation, we depend very fundamentally on the interest of the community in supporting us philanthropically. And what is interesting, I'll come back to, is that all the dollars that come here are levered many, many times over. We welcome you to a tour now to come and visit Home Lab. We welcome you, though, to come back to Toronto Rehab at any time. On the ground floor on the university entrance, there's a thing called Innovations Gallery. You can always go there and talk to volunteers about what's going on at Toronto Rehab, see what's the latest, book a tour and see some of the exciting labs downstairs, and talk to any of the researchers at any time. So with special thanks to our 3 guest speakers, who are really very special people with an enormous amount of energy. Trish and Ted, I can see that Tridel and Rivera are going to be able to make some amazing buildings, and Alex is bringing the whole country together, and in fact the world, in a huge effort. I wish them all the very best of luck, and I thank you again, and I thank the Foundation for the effort this morning. Thank you.